theme for today's video is acceptance. And just the word acceptance can sometimes make us feel like, well, if I just accept this, then I'm just being passive. It's just, me being weak, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I give up, I let go. And actually, it isn't really that. It's actually one of the most powerful doorways that brings you back to yourself, back to who you truly are. And we think of acceptance sometimes that I've got to like what's happening, but it doesn't mean that at all. It just simply means that allowing it stops the fighting that happens inside of yourself and stops the mental chatter and the trying to solve the problem mentally without really getting anywhere and going into those mental spiral looping systems. And this really is us resisting. It's our mind, our ego, our personality resisting what's happening in our life. And when the mind does this, it signals danger to the nervous system. So the nervous system does its job very well. The body tightens and braces. The energy field is drawn inwards for protection. Our breath shortens. And we can even start to have pain show in our physical bodies. Often the back is somewhere that really shows, where there's some kind of the body trying to communicate with us that it's not okay. Obviously the back has lots of meanings. One of those things is a belief that I'm not supported. But when we can just fully drop into the energy of acceptance, even in the midst of something that is incredibly difficult or threatening, or perceived, it could be perceived as being threatening to our lives, the body then receives a different message. And it then feels like, okay, we can accept. If you just feel into the energy of, right, okay, all of this stuff is happening, but I'm just going to breathe into it. Okay, I accept it. I accept it in all of its uncomfortable glory. And it's actually one of the platforms of healing, just acceptance of what is, no matter what the issue is. And just that one thing alone changes everything. First of all, it is within the biology, it's regulation for the system, and the system can just start to soften, stop gripping, stop tightening, stop resisting, and just open. And I was watching we have some trees here, quite tall, thin willow trees, and it's been quite windy. The weather's been obviously January and beginning of February, and I noticed the other day that the trees have got those little furry, lovely little things. I used to play with them when I was little, thinking they were like mice, but they're beautiful little things that are starting to sprout off the trees. And I was watching these trees in the wind the other day, and they're so tall and thin that if they were rigid and tight and resisted the wind, they would just snap. So if we think about flowers, we think about trees, we think about nature, they don't try and control the weather. They just bend. And then when the sun comes out, they open. And they are incredibly flexible, and that's what keeps them alive. So if we can really feel into acceptance in this sense, they're just totally accepting of whatever the weather is throwing at it. And then they just bend and shift and move and allow, completely accepting without judgment. There is no, oh my God, it's windy, it's going to snap my branches off. They just allow it to be as it is. And when we soften into acceptance, instead of fighting reality, we become like that tree, really grounded and rooted, but just open and allowing. And that's such a bigger, expansive energy. you can just feel into it yourself now when we just go, okay, and you've probably had this happen in your life before, where there might have been a difficult situation that you braced for, you resisted, you tried to solve in the mind, and then in the end, when all avenues have been exhausted, there was just okay, I just accept what is. And then that's when things start to shift in that situation. So when we're contracted inside, life feels contracted on the outside, because what we are within is what we see reflected externally. So when we soften and allow, the world meets us differently. And the same thing can be happening, but our perception of that situation can shift. There's so many perspectives to a situation. We just think our one kind of blinkered way of looking at something is how it is. But actually, no, if we zoom out much bigger, there's a whole bigger picture at play. And the softening and the resistance release is what then allows the world to show us a different perspective. And it's almost like the hologram of reality begins to then bend and match the energy that we're broadcasting. And when we resist acceptance most, it's when something feels threatening to our identity, to our ego, to our personality, to the plans that we've had in place, or to our sense of safety. And obviously, as we talked about before, the mind wants to fix and control and predict, and it's the mind that then controls the nervous system. But your soul says, on a deeper level, what if you could meet this moment with openness instead of fear? And just feel the expansive energy of just that sentence. And life will still life. That's part of the game. Challenges will still come. Pain will still happen. But the suffering that comes along with that is created by how tightly we grip and resist and push against what's happening. And so this is why acceptance isn't a passive energy. It's actually a very powerful energy. And it doesn't mean that you just stop doing everything, but it means that the action that you then start to take comes from a deeper sense of clarity and knowing, instead of scrabbling and trying to solve it from a very, much weaker energy from the mind. So what if, even in the face of a real difficulty, you could say to yourself, I don't know how this is going to resolve, but I'm willing to stay open. Maybe, my mind can conceive all of these possible outcomes that are all coming from a very fearful space, but what if there's something better? What if there's something different? What if there's something I can't possibly see yet that will be, when we've passed through this situation, we'll look back and go, wow, amazing, I couldn't have seen that coming. But we can only have that happen when we are fully able to allow and accept what is now. And it's that openness and expansive energy of that then allows for new perceptions and new ways for that situation to resolve that you could not possibly have imagined. So this is, again, mastery. This is sovereignty. This is totally moving out of victimhood and moving into that calm space of total mastery of your experience. So maybe you can ask yourself, when you think about your own life, is there anywhere where you're fighting what is? And if there is, can you allow yourself to breathe with it, to accept what is and just allow it to be? What might change if you just softened a little? So I hope that video helped someone today. I know it's quite relevant in my life right now with the situations that are occurring. And yeah, my intention is just to offer some little bits of support where I can. And I'm really happy to receive your comments and your personal situations, and know that we are all travelling this path together and we are all held. Thank you for listening.